Let's face it, as mental health professionals, documentation can end up being the bane of your existence if you get behind, if you don't document the way that you're supposed to, if you get clawbacks with the way that you document, or if you find that you are just really struggling with the time to set aside to actually do good clinical notes. And so today I'm going to break down some tried and true tips that I have found so helpful when it comes to doing good, fast note taking to make sure that you do not get behind, that you stay on track, that you are protecting client confidentiality, and that you are not finding yourself going, I cannot believe I'm spending hours documenting. Believe it or not, I have seen lots of people say that they spend hours upon hours documenting in any given day. And that is so not helpful, right? Like you've got so much other stuff you'd rather be doing. And yet, documentation is so important in the clinical work that we do because if you don't document it, then where is your record that says that you delivered services? Where is your record that says that what you're saying happened? How do you review that for treatment planning? How do you review that if insurance is saying, hey, we want to do an audit? Like, how do you know what's happening if there's no notes? And so it's so important that we keep good clinical notes, but we also don't need to be spending hours upon hours upon hours every week documenting or finding ourselves giving ourselves no time to document. And then Saturday rolls around when we don't want to be working and we're going, I have notes to catch up on from the whole previous week. I'm already feeling stressed out. Like, how am I going to get this done? So, I'm going to give you some tried and true helpful tips that I have found help me specifically keep up on my documentation, not fall behind, not get distracted as much as possible, and to just take good, fast clinical notes. The first thing that I would say is when it comes to documenting, because you know that you have to document a specific amount every week when you're working with clients, that it actually makes sense to block off or schedule that time so that no matter what extra things happen in your schedule, you have that time already set aside for you to do notes. Now, I would not recommend doing this just once a week. I actually would recommend doing this periodically throughout the week to make sure that you don't get behind. Because if you're saying admin days are going to be my Fridays and I'll just do all my notes on Fridays, well, then you're naturally setting yourself up to be behind because come Friday, if you haven't blocked any more time, you're behind. You can be behind 4 days worth. You can be behind more than that. So I would say schedule or block out time in your schedule and do that multiple times a week. Now, it doesn't have to be huge blocks of time, but could I document 30 minutes here before I leave on Monday? And could I document 30 minutes over lunch on Wednesday? And if you start to do that and you start to piecemeal it together that way versus I need 4 hours of uninterrupted time, which I mean, that's hard to come by. 4 hours of uninterrupted time where I have to get my notes done, that's not going to work. If you piecemeal it together, you are likely to find that you get more done, you get less behind, you're more likely to follow through with that. It seems less daunting, right? Because 4 hours versus 30 minutes are two totally different things. And then you're staying up to date. So I would look at your schedule as it is right now and see, do I have any gaps in my schedule? Could I add a small block of time to just document and minimize anything else I might be doing during that time, specifically not scheduling anything during that time, not making phone calls during that time, like just doing documentation. And that could be in the middle of your day, that could be at the end of your day, it could be a combination of both throughout the week. But see what your schedule looks like right now and if there's an opportunity to block off some time, because that would immediately give you designated time where you don't have to worry about trying to fit it in. It's already there for you and you know what to expect. Now, when your admin time comes up, now that you've blocked it off, make sure that you are doing the following things. Minimize distractions, first and foremost. If you're working at an agency or an office where there's other people around, it's very easy to get distracted. It's also very easy to get distracted if you've got lots of things pulled up on your computer, if you've got your personal phone beside you, if your office phone is ringing off the hook. There's just so many opportunities to get distracted. And I myself have been in that position before where I felt like, okay, I've got my block time, I'm going to document. And it's like everybody knew that that's what I was trying to do and all of a sudden needed me in that moment. And if you can relate to that, you are not alone because I swear everyone just they feel that you're not available and they're like this is the time that I need to talk to her or him. So make sure that you're doing everything you can on your end from the get-go to minimize distractions. So shut your office door, put a do not disturb on your door so that no one can reach you. put an out of office up so that people know, hey, she's not to be disturbed. Do not be answering emails during that time. Maybe don't have your email up. Silence your personal phone, silence your office phone temporarily. Don't have any distractions. Don't have the TV on, don't have music playing, don't have anything going on that is going to potentially distract you and shift your focus elsewhere. Really try to only focus on the documentation that you're about to do and get rid of anything that might sway you into doing something different or getting down this rabbit hole or starting to look at something over here. And this is especially true for my people who have ADHD. It's You're naturally going to feel harder to focus. And so being intentional with making sure that you are minimizing every possible distraction or possible distraction from the get go and really signaling to people, I'm not available, is a surefire way to help you focus more than if you're also trying to mentally distance yourself from this browser that I have up and my personal phone that keeps going off and I can hear the ding and the email that I see continue to come in as I'm trying to document, right? Like your brain is working so much harder in that moment to stay focused. Minimize all of those. Put your door closed, put a sign on your door that says do not disturb. Do anything you can to minimize those distractions, including this next tip, which is if it's really hard to get notes done where you currently work or where you're currently doing your notes, change locations. So if you're trying to do your notes at home in the evening after your kids go to bed and you're distracted with a million other things because you're at home and you can see this needs to be done and this needs to be put away, change the location. Same thing if this is happening in the office and you're like, I'm trying to do this and people will not leave me alone despite all the measures that I've already put in place or some of the tips that I just mentioned. Go to a different location. Do the note taking in your car. Do the note taking at a coffee shop. Do the note taking in a group room where people are less likely to find you. Like, try to put yourself in a different location to see if that helps one, minimize distractions, two, helps you be more focused and kind of zoned in on this is why I'm here, this is what I'm doing. And then three, gives people some distance between you and them so that they are less likely to see that you might be potentially available or try to get you to be available and then distract you that way. This next tip for good, fast documentation is to make sure that when you're doing all the things that I just mentioned, that you're being very strict with yourself. So if you say Tuesdays, I do not see clients from 12 to 1, and I'm going to spend 30 minutes of that time eating my lunch, and I'm going to spend 30 minutes of that time doing notes, then when Tuesday comes around at 12 o'clock, be strict with yourself and don't give yourself an opportunity to talk yourself out of doing the very thing that you wanted to do. Don't allow yourself to make excuses or to minimize the importance of this or to tell yourself things like, I'll do that later. Spoiler alert, you're not going to do it later. Something else will probably come up, or you'll want to go home, or you'll want to go with your family, or a session will run over, and then crap, I didn't do that. So be strict with yourself. Be very diligent with yourself. Make yourself hold you accountable, hold your feet to the fire and say, I said I was going to do this. I'm putting my phone away. I'm minimizing distractions. I am doing this note taking and I'm going to focus on doing these specific notes in the time that I have set aside. Because let's face it, no one is going to come behind you and say, you said you were going to do your notes today. Did you do them? No one's going to do that. Now, your supervisor, if you have one, may get on you and say, why are your notes so far behind? But that's probably not going to be a day-to-day thing. And if it is, that's a whole other thing. But most of us are not going to have someone that's coming behind us going, hey, you said you were going to do that on Wednesday and it is Wednesday evening and you haven't done it yet. When are you going to do it? We have to be the ones to go, I said I was going to document at the end of my day and I was going to do my notes for the day before I left. And so even though I want to leave early and I can look outside and I can see how beautiful it is, I'm not leaving until these notes that I said I was going to do are done. And then as soon as I get them done, I can go and enjoy myself and enjoy my evening and get outside or do whatever I want to do and not have to worry about it. Because if you leave it, you have to worry about it. It becomes future use problem. I've got to figure out how to do that tomorrow now with my busy schedule, or I have to figure out when am I going to do that because I said I was going to leave early tomorrow to go to a doctor's appointment. It becomes a bigger headache than if you are able to just say, nope, I'm holding myself accountable. I said I was going to do this. I'm going to do this. And really be diligent with that because, again, you can talk yourself out of it, but I caution you not to because If you do, you are going to get behind. And let's talk about getting behind for a second, because it's so easy to get behind. And yet, if you are finding yourself consistently behind days, a week, or more in your documentation, this is a massive problem for so many reasons. One, do you really thoroughly remember the intricacies of the interaction that you had with the client last Tuesday if you have since had 50 more interactions with clients? No, you don't. Even if you say you do, I don't believe it because there's so much that our brain tries to remember. And the way that you remember a session the day of is going to be different than the way that you remember that session a week from now, 3 months from now, when you look back on it and read the note a year from now. So your brain is going to change the way that you remember that, and you're not going to remember things as clearly. You might misremember information, things might be fuzzy, you might completely forget, like, where did we leave off? And so if you are getting behind and then you're trying to catch up, your documentation is likely going to be less than it could be because your brain just doesn't remember. And this is just the reality of how our brains work. We can't remember everything precisely. Most of us don't have photographic memory, right? So, like, you can't expect yourself and your brain to remember all those things. And so, when you get too far behind, your note taking actually decreases in value. And what I mean by value is you're less likely to remember things and to provide as good of a clinical note as you could had you done it sooner. The other piece to that is it is very daunting to think about having to do notes, let alone thinking about having to do 15 notes, 30 notes, 50 notes. And yet, if you're behind days, maybe you're running groups, maybe you're behind a week, all of a sudden it quickly adds up and you have 50 plus notes to do. That's going to sound daunting. And that doesn't even factor in the fact that you might still be accruing notes that you need to do in the moment because you're still meeting with clients. So I want to try to avoid getting to that place where we're really far behind. And my strategy for that would be hold yourself accountable to getting notes done in less than 48 hours from the time that you met with that client. Ideally, 24 hours. But I know that things happen and things come up. But if you hold yourself accountable to, I will get this note done and completed no more than 48 hours or 24 hours, since that conversation with the client, you will not get behind. You will have good clinical documentation done in a timely manner that you can move on and not have to think about or dwell about or stress about moving forward. And if you are currently behind, you might need to set aside some time in the evenings, on the weekends, blocking out more time until you're able to catch up before you can start implementing that rule. But I encourage you to do that because if you don't, you're just going to continue to get behind and it's going to feel more daunting and more overwhelming and it's not going to get any better. Now, when it comes to notes, I see a lot of people putting way too much into notes. And part of the reason it's taking so long is because they are writing extremely detailed. They're putting way more information in a note that's necessary. And so it's taking so long because their notes are too long. And so we need to make sure that we find a sweet spot. Put in what you need to put in, but you don't need to put in fluff. And so when it comes to doing good, fast clinical notes, you need to have a couple of key things. Now, I think it's important to note specific things related to interventions that you're doing, to symptoms that they're having, to goals that they're having. But do I need 4 sentences about the stressor specifically in detail? No. And we want to protect the client's confidentiality in that moment and not share that information because we don't know in the moment when we're writing that note who might one day subpoena it, who might one day audit us, who might one day review that note. And the client can always request their notes as well. And so, what might the client think if they're reading their note that you did and they're noticing that you put in a lot of details, maybe a whole paragraph about the intricacies of what they said? Do they want that in their note? I would say no. And you don't need that in your note because it's going to, one, be unnecessary, but two, take up way too much time. And so notes should be short, sweet, to the point, and concise. So set the stage, describe what the client is doing in the session, describe their appearance, their affect, their mood, describe any symptoms that are noted. Ask them about any SI, HI, ABH. Ask them about symptoms related to their goals, right? Have you had any panic attacks this week? Like, I want to know all that information very quickly when I read that. And then the rest of the note should really focus on clinically, what did you do? What interventions did you do? How did you and the client work on specific goals? And they should be tied to those specific goals. And you can do that in a couple of really quick sentences. It does not need to be, I, you know, had 20 minutes of conversation with the client about all of these details. And then for another 30 minutes, we talked about all of these details. And all of a sudden, I've written you a 3-page essay on what we did. No, it could be something very short and sweet. And obviously, that was exaggerating. But seriously, it needs to be something very short and sweet. What did you do? Did you educate them? Did you assist them with processing something? Did you explore unhealthy thinking habits? Like, it needs to be something very specific, tied to their goals, but you don't need a lot of extra information in there. And then there should be somewhere in there that again mentions the goals and then ties to what's next. Are they supposed to try that skill when they go home? Are they supposed to do X, Y, or Z? What are you going to do? Like, what is the plan moving forward? And then after that, that's it. Anything else is just extra. And if someone discloses something to you that you feel like is concerning, that needs attention drawn to it, that needs to be reviewed or revisited at a later time, absolutely throw that in there if it doesn't fit what I just said. But you really don't need to over describe interactions that you're doing with the client. It can be sweet, concise, and to the point without a lot of extra fluff. And then that saves you time. It protects the client's confidentiality and it frees you up to get your other notes done. Now, obviously, that was a very quick, rapid fire way to do good notes. And maybe I need to do a video more in detail about good clinical note taking. If that's something that is of interest to you, please let me know in the comments below so I can make sure that I do a video on that. But I know that was a very quick, rapid fire way to do notes. But the reality is that your notes should be quick, rapid fire, right? Like, if it's taking you more than 5 minutes to do a 50-minute session note, it's taking too long. Yes. If it's taking you more than 5 minutes to do a good clinical note where you are documenting what happened in a 50 to 55-minute session, it's taking too long. And why might it be taking too long? Well, like I said earlier, distractions, you're putting too much information in there, you're trying to multitask and do other things while taking notes. There could be a lot of reasons for that. But don't feel like that you have to work yourself to the bone here on doing documentation and include every last nuance and detail of what happened in the session. It's not needed, it's not necessary, and the client doesn't need all that information in their note. We want to protect their confidentiality and we want to make sure that what's in there and needs to be in there is in there, and what's not is left out. And then the last piece is you just got to get in there and you got to get it done. I know it's not always the most fun part of our job. I know it can be time consuming. I know there's a lot of other documentation that can be time consuming that we didn't talk about, like treatment plan reviews and doing an actual assessment and all the things that come with the documentation, discharge summaries, like all these things. It's a lot. And I know I didn't even go into all of that. But when it comes to the notes that you do, you just got to get in there and you got to do it. You got to get it done. And any way that you feel like helps you to streamline that process, minimize distractions, get it done, stay on top of it, put what you need in the note, leave out what you don't, and helps you to have good clinical documentation is worth doing. I know some people also talk about, the recent use of like AI with notes, and I personally don't have any experience with that because I am not using AI to do my notes. These are all tips that I have used throughout my career to make sure I'm staying up to date on my documentation, but I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. I'm not getting it from any place else other than right here and right here. So I know that that's something that some people are doing. I myself personally have some mixed thoughts on that because while I haven't done it for myself, I know other people who've done it. I've listened to some podcasts about it, and I think there's a time and place for AI. I just personally don't know how I feel about doing that with notes. But if you are utilizing it with notes, make sure that you are reviewing and proofreading that because AI is not foolproof and it still needs to sound like you. You need to approve everything that is in that note. But I know some people say that AI helps them with their notes. So use that at your discretion. I think there's positives and negatives to it, just like everything else. And maybe my opinion would change on that if I used it more in my own practice. I just don't. And like I said, I've used these tips and I am up to date on my documentation. and I am not behind. I don't have massive admin days where I'm catching up on days at a time. And I feel like that documentation is not a massive source of stress for me. And so I fully believe that if you utilize the skills that I said in this video, you will feel the same way. And you will find that there is a balance to making sure that you have that time blocked off, getting the documentation done, having good, quick, accurate clinical notes, putting in there what you need to, not putting too much that's going to be more time consuming, and staying up to date on what you need to be documenting. I'm also curious for you, have you found anything that really helps you with your clinical documentation and making sure that you stay up to date? Or is this a big struggle for you and you feel like that this is really hard for you to do? I'm interested to hear everyone's thoughts. So make sure that you leave that in the comments below. And until next time, bye.